Hello. In this video I'm going to address some of the frequently asked questions about hypnosis and hypnotherapy. These are the kind of questions that people often ask when they first contact me on the telephone or on their first visit when they come and see me. And the first question is, what does it actually feel like to be hypnotized? How would I know that I actually had been hypnotized? A lot of people have a misconception. They think they're going to be asleep when they're in hypnotic trance. And it's understandable that people think that because, unfortunately, back in the 19th century, the name hypnosis, which actually comes from the Greek word for sleep, was given to this state of mind. And so people assume that they're going to be asleep. In actual fact, you're not. When you're hypnotized, you're not asleep. Even in very deep hypnotic trance, you're not asleep. You are as physically relaxed as if you were asleep, and your imagination is as vivid as when you're dreaming. But you're not asleep and you're not dreaming. It's a different state of mind to that. After their first experience of hypnosis, the kind of thing my clients say is, I can't remember ever feeling so relaxed. That's the most relaxed I've ever been for years. I didn't want to come back because I was enjoying it so much. I felt lifted up above all my problems without any anxieties or cares. It was like a dream. My body was as relaxed as if I was asleep, but I could hear what you were saying, so I know that I was not asleep. That's just some of the kind of things that people typically say. Hypnosis, although it's not sleep, but it does feel different to ordinary waking consciousness, and you feel that difference especially when you come back out of it back into the room, as they say. You know that you've been somewhere different. Most people, whilst they're in a trance, they're perfectly aware that they could snap themselves out of it at any time. They know that, and that's okay, because so you could snap yourself out of it at any time if you wanted to. Nobody ever does, because it's a nice experience and they know that it's helping them, but they could if they wanted to. Even when you're in a very, very, very deep hypnotic trance, you're still completely in control of what you're doing. You can't be made to do anything that you do not want to do. Okay, next question. How do I actually hypnotize a person? What do I do? There's many, many methods. I prefer the methods that just involve talking to you. I talk you into trance. And that's a skill that I have. It's something that I've trained with and studied over many, many years. Doesn't involve any physical contact, really. Sometimes I might just kind of lift your arm, like from the elbow. I don't go any higher than the elbow. I do that, I lift your arm so that you can feel the weight of your own arm, and so that you can feel the muscles in your arm relaxing more deeply than you've previously experienced. That's the only reason why I need to do that. I don't do that with everybody, but I do with some people. But that's the only physical contact that's involved. It doesn't go any further than the elbow. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. I use although I'm trained in using very, very rapid methods of hypnotizing, like stage hypnotists use, I don't normally use those with clients because I think those methods are more about showing off, really. They're not really helpful to the client, so I don't generally use those methods, because it's all about giving power to the client, giving the client power over their own self, over their own emotional reactions and their own thoughts and so on. It's not about just me bigging myself up. On the subject of stage hypnotism, people often ask, are those people really hypnotized, or are they just play acting? The answer is a bit of both. Stage hypnotists are showmen. They're there to entertain people, if you think that's entertaining. Personally, I don't. But that's what that's about. And the stage hypnotist has the huge luxury that they're able to choose out of a large audience. They'll choose about maybe 6 people out of a very large audience. And often those people are already drunk, so they're very uninhibited anyway. And the people that choose, that go up there and volunteer, and the hypnotist chooses a few of those people, and he knows who to select. He can recognise the natural exhibitionists, the natural performers, as it were, and he just deals with those people. Whereas somebody like me, a therapeutic hypnotist that's hypnotising people to help them, rather than to make a fool of them, I have to be able to deal with almost everybody. I don't select just a few unusual people to work with. Why is hypnotherapy not available on the NHS? Actually, stage hypnotists are also partly to blame for that, because they do give a very bad impression of hypnosis. I mean, you wouldn't find a surgeon doing operations on a stage, would you? Or a dentist, doing fillings as a stage performance. So stage hypnotists just give a very wrong impression of the whole field of hypnosis. Another reason is why don't doctors do hypnosis? Because they don't know how to. It's not covered in their medical training. They've got a lot of other things to learn. It would be great if they all did practice hypnotherapy, but very, very few of them do, simply because they haven't studied it. It's not part of the medical school curriculum. And for the most part, doctors don't know anything about it. They don't even learn about it in theory, let alone how to actually do it. I think that's very unfortunate. In other countries, it is much more accepted by the medical profession, but unfortunately not in this country. We're rather backward in that respect. What's the scientific evidence for hypnosis? Oh, this is one that annoys me. People say, what's the evidence for it? Isn't it just mumbo jumbo? Isn't it just a hippy dippy kind of new agey kind of thing? That annoys me when people say that, because it's usually people that think they're quite educated that will come out with that. My answer to them is right here. If I just reach for it. Okay, so this here is the Oxford Handbook of Hypnosis, Theory, Research and Practice. Okay, and as you can see, it's a good, big, thick, heavy book. It's over 800 pages. And that is published by the University of Oxford. And I'm sure you know that is one of the top 3 universities on this entire planet. Okay. It's where prime ministers go. And some of the greatest scientists on earth, and the greatest psychologists on earth have studied at the University of Oxford. And every chapter in that book is written by either a medical doctor or a psychologist, PhD psychologist, academic researcher. And every article at the end of it has references to, 50 odd other articles, all of them published in learned scientific journals, all of them published by scientists, psychologists and medical doctors. Okay, so the University of Oxford does not deal in mumbo jumbo. Yeah, they don't waste their time on. They would not be wasting their time on hypnosis, publishing an 800-page book about hypnosis, if they didn't take it very seriously as a therapeutic technique. So hopefully that disposes of that objection. Doctors and psychologists have been studying hypnosis for over 200 years now, since the 18th century. And there's some really great work still, really great work going on all over the world in finding out more about it, how it works and how it can help people. Okay, next question, a very important one. How can I be sure that a hypnotherapist is competent and ethical? Okay, this is a good one, because the trouble with hypnotherapy is that anyone can call themselves a hypnotherapist. Okay, if you call yourself a medical doctor and you're not, you could end up in prison. If you call yourself a registered nurse and you're not, you might not go to prison, but it is a criminal offence. Anyone could call himself a hypnotherapist. So how do you know that your hypnotherapist has done a proper training or even any training? What you really need to do first is look on his or her website, look on where they claim to have trained, then look that up and have a good look at it and find out, okay, how long was the training? How long did it last? Was it a weekend or was it 3 or 4 years? That kind of thing. You might also look at the Open University. I think they've stopped doing it now, but they used to look at every kind of training course, whether done by colleges or by the armed forces or whatever, and they would kind of grade them. And the hypnotherapy training that I did was graded by the university by the Open University as a postgraduate level training. So that's a very high academic level. So that's one thing you could do. You also need to check your hypnotherapist is on a proper professional register that's got a complaints procedure. Okay, because otherwise, what redress do you have? I mean, unless they've actually done something that was criminal. But if it's just kind of unprofessional, what can you do? If they're on a professional register, then they've got a code of conduct that they have to keep to, and that there is a means of making a complaint if you needed to. Having said which, the best guide really isn't any of those things I've just said. The best guide really is your own gut feeling. Okay, if you meet a therapist, okay, and it's absolutely fine to, just as if you were having a new double glazing put in, you wouldn't just go to one person, would you? You'd get a few estimates. You'd meet a few people, and if you just got a gut feeling, this guy looks like a bit of a cowboy, you don't have to go with that particular person. And it's exactly the same with hypnotherapy. If your gut feeling tells you stay away, then that's what you should do. Okay. Bear in mind that an ethical hypnotherapist has got nothing to hide. Okay. So if you wanted to record the session, for example, I've only ever had one person do that. And that wasn't because they were suspicious. It's just they wanted to get more out of it, by recording it and listening to it again at home. So a good hypnotherapist is never going to object to that. Likewise, if you want to bring a friend or relative to sit in with you, again, a proper therapist won't have any problem with you doing that. Next question, can everyone be hypnotized? Yeah, pretty much, if they want to be, but not everybody wants to be. And some people think they want to be, but actually they don't. And the usual reason why they don't is because they're afraid. And why they're afraid? Well, that brings us back to stage hypnotists. They don't want to be made a fool of. And they don't want to have someone else controlling them. Okay, because that's another misconception. You remember what I said earlier? Actually, even in the deepest trance, you're still in control of yourself. You could still snap yourself out of it at any time. And you can't be made to do anything that you really do not want to do. Okay, I'm not interested in making people do things that they don't want to do. I'm interested in helping people do the things they want to do, but they're afraid of, or they don't have enough willpower or whatever. That brings us to another question, not one I'm often asked, but once or twice it comes up. Some people actually think that hypnosis might be against their religion. Why do people think this? Because, you won't find hypnosis mentioned in the Bible or the Quran or any other scripture. So why would people think that it was against their religion? Again, that really just comes down to ignorance, misconception. People thinking that the hypnotist is in control of them and they should not give control of themselves to anyone except God. But of course, the hypnotist is not in control of you. So that's not an issue. Okay. And I have had clients of every religion: Christian, Muslim, Sikh, Hindu, pagan, Buddhist, and of course people of no religion. Finally, last question: is hypnosis only for certain sorts of people? Hippy dippy people, new agey people, whatever. And the short answer is absolutely not. Hypnotherapy is for everybody. I have seen over the last 22 years, I have seen a fascinating variety of people. I've seen lots of armed forces people, both serving members of the armed forces and veterans. People in very interesting jobs, high-level bodyguards, models, doctors, authors, musicians, actors, some very successful business people, police officers, every kind of practical trades, electricians, plumbers, taxi drivers, nurses, care assistants, shop assistants, deep sea divers, students, school pupils, etc., etc. Vicar, I've seen vicars, you name it. Every social class, every race, all different sexual orientations, a lot of gay and bisexual people I've seen at one time or another. And my clients' ages, I don't deal with young children. That's just my personal preference. I've got a colleague who's got 12 grandchildren, so I pass them on to him. But my clients' ages range from 14, basically from 14 upwards, I deal with. And I think the oldest client I've seen is 86. So that's the age range that I deal with. Okay, so basically hypnotherapy is for anybody. Now, if you've got a brain, you can be hypnotised. If you don't have a brain, you presumably wouldn't know how to log on to the internet, and so you won't be watching this video. Okay, so that's enough questions for today, and I hope that has enlightened you and given you a bit more knowledge.